Back again for another video. So I'm not going to do this video on camera this time because I don't feel like it. I actually took the day off of work. Hold on for a second. So I live on a corner house and it's pretty loud. There are always people driving by with their loud ass cars. Get your damn mufflers fixed. But anyways, the video that I want to do today is going to be on selflessness. This is something of cognitive ability. Now we may see what we like to call selflessness in nature, but it's not really selflessness. It's species preservation that you see. Don't confuse that. We as humans, we like to anthropomorphize animals when we shouldn't, because it's usually going to be to our detriment of understanding and our detriment of physical security when we deal with animals in a anthropomorphized way. And basically what that means is you place human attributes or human emotion and human cognitive thinking onto animals. Animals don't have that level of consciousness. They don't have that level of understanding to know that what they're doing is an act of what we would consider kindness or showing love and all that, etc. Like, animals don't do that. They don't have that level of consciousness to articulate that. It's just their biology speaking. Now, how this is different for humans is because we have a higher level of consciousness. We have a higher level of autonomy when it comes to us versus nature. And that's not to exclude that we do not have the ability to show portions of nature throughout our interactions with the physical world. But for the most part, we operate in a human stance that is completely different from what nature is. And that is the difference between all of the pills. The red pill, the blue pill, and the black pill. The black pill is the nature side of it. The red pill is the middle ground between the nature and the social construct. And of course, the blue is the social construct. I might go in depth later on about that, but I don't think I want to necessarily, because I want to see what BGS has to say about it, due to the fact that he's probably a highly more skilled subject matter expert on that than I am, because he is the one to understand those things more readily due to his experiences and his wisdom, and I have not yet come to that level of experience and wisdom. So therefore, I'll wait for him to do it, and then I'll assess it as such, and then I'll go on with a video if I decide to do so. But anyways, selflessness. Let's get to that. Selflessness is usually described. Hold on, let me actually look up the definition of it, because I do these things on the fly. So give me a second. Selflessness. It is described as the concern more with the needs and wishes of others than with oneself. That is the definition for it. And I'm one of a lot of black pill understanding, and I don't necessarily see it that way. We as humans, we like to let our emotions dictate what our reality is telling us. And people who don't do that, they're usually called heartless, but because it's non-emotional. It's just what it is. You're accepting the reality for what you see, and you express it and explain it as such. You're called heartless for this, but I don't see it as being heartless. It's just being in tune with the reality. But anyways, selflessness. I don't believe humans are selfless, because we operate on a nature that is from self-preservation. That is the whole concept of social homeostasis. Social homeostasis is simply what humans do to make themselves comfortable in the environment that they're in. We change things, we alter things, we do things for our own selfish interest, irregardless of what nature is supposed to be. Hence, civilization. Um, the other part of it is that we like to believe we have selflessness amongst one another. Um, I'll go a little bit deeper with that one. The reason why I believe that we do not is because everything that is a derivative of your actions, or everything that shows as a derivative from your own personal point of view and perspective, comes from an act of selflessness or selfishness. It comes from an act of selfishness, which is the complete antithesis of selflessness. Because selflessness, once again, implies your concern about someone else's well-being over your own. To paraphrase, if you really think about it, let's break this down into layman's terms, in layman's situation. Let's say someone, I brought it up before in previous videos, but let's say someone sees a car coming and there's someone in the middle of the street and they push the individual out of the way, and they subsequently lose their life because of that, and they become the victim of what was supposed to be an accident that was supposed to be afflicted on the person who they pushed out of the way. Most people would see that as an act of selflessness. This is not, because this comes from a position of one's desire. And of course, the person who's in the street doesn't have a desire to be killed. So, and more than likely they're unaware of the situation, or they get the hell out of the way themselves. But the person who acts upon another person's life, and pushes them out of the way, and subsequently gives their life or put themselves in harm's way for the other person, this is not selflessness, because it comes from a core of desire. Your desire is what drives you to do anything in this world. There are rarely any people who can operate outside their desire. Normally, if they do, they're operating on base biology. Kind of like a woman's desire to have a kid, even though the climate socially and economically might not be the best climate for her to have a kid in. She still probably is going to have that kid if the desire is high enough. But that is a biological predisposition, which is completely different from intrinsic desire based on personality. So, I know this is probably a boring video, but I wanted to do this video because it's a fundamental, and I think people need to understand the difference between selflessness is what we see. I don't believe it exists at all, because everything that you get pleasure from doing, or you do anyways, is being reinforced by your biology, your endocrine system, pretty much rewarding you. Is rewarding you with all of these hormones that is saying that this is a good thing to do. This is the difference between classical conditioning and operant conditioning, though. Because let's say, for instance, the act of sex, it releases a lot of feel-good hormones, such as epinephrine, oxytocin, and dopamine. While this is a biological thing, it can be reinforced through classical conditioning. Classical conditioning is basically taking a non-stimuli object and applying it to a biologically stimuli object, such as like sex, and then combining the two to complete what is called what do they call it? I'm at a lost word, because once again, I don't take any notes on this stuff, and I could be a little bit off. So correct me if I'm wrong, please. But this is what I remember. So it's connected to what's called a conditioned stimuli. It's basically what Pavlov's dog went through, essentially, if you remember the case. Hunger is a natural response, but a bell being tied to hunger is not a natural response. So what would happen is he would feed the dog and he would ring the bell. Or he did it the other way around, sorry. He rung the bell and then he would feed the dog. And then it became a conditioned stimuli after a period of time where he rung the bell and the dogs would salivate without there being any food present. This is the same way that you can be conditioned to do certain things through sex, even though that they are not directly tied to the nature and biology of the reason why you enjoy sex in the first place. They can be conditions. You can have conditioned stimuli behind these things. But that brings me back to the point of this being different when it comes to selflessness. Selflessness, like I said, implies that you are doing something irregardless of what your benefit is. But once again, all desire comes from a conditioned response, a reward system. It comes from you being rewarded for doing such, or even thinking such. You could think a thought and be rewarded for it, and therefore gives you a higher propensity to act on such thought if there came a time and opportunity for you to do so. And this is, because you can only give your life once. You don't get another. But people oftentimes talk about what they would do when it comes to giving their life from someone and for someone, and the conditions in which they would need to do so to do that. That would need to be present in order for them to do that. I personally talk about giving my life for my children all the time, even though I've never done it. This is just a thought, but I am being rewarded by my internal workings to do so. Hence, there never being a point where the benefit of others would supersede my own desire. My desire comes first, and that goes the same for anyone else in this world. Your desire comes first. Therefore, you don't have the ability to be selfless. You only have the desire to be selfish because it is your desire, even though it may be to the benefit of someone else. It starts with you. And how this works. Okay, so that's the reason why I call BS on a lot of things that women tell me when it comes to their desire to please me. It still comes from a desire of themselves first. Even though it may be a perceived higher benefit to me, but that's only my perception. To them, it's a greater perception of desire and reward for them than it is to me, because I am not them. I can only receive that. I cannot create that. And this is the reason why men, you should definitely, I guess you can say, try to get down to the core root. And men and women, you should definitely get down to the core root of a person's desire, because that is where the truth lies. Don't pay so much to their actions, because don't let your emotions get caught up in there's a such thing as selfishness. That's just the lies you tell yourself to cope with the reality of not having to figure out what the true answer is. That's how we operate as humans for the most part. Our thoughts are a collection of important things. We don't necessarily store everything that we perceive. We don't do that. We only focus on the things that are important to our own survivals and desires. So you could be missing something when you cloud your mind with the fact that you believe that this woman or man is being selfless, when in case they have an ulterior motive desire behind it. Now, whether this desire is to your detriment or benefit, it's not up for me to find out. That's your job. But anyways, that's the point of my statement of selflessness, is to make sure that you as the individual are aware that there is something before what you perceive, and that is not them being them putting you first. No such thing. But anyways, this has been a Wolf in Better Clothes. May you have a good day, and peace be with you.